Termites, it's night 22. I'm not really sure when these are going to be posted, so I'm going to say Happy New Year again. We're going to pretend like, again, it's still the last night of 2020. See how I worked all that out by myself? I did. What are we drinking? Oh my God, did you hear that they have banned alcohol in South Africa because of COVID? I guess because they say people are partying, but you know what? I have a lot of friends that only eat edibles. What are you going to do about that? And they like to be around other people when they eat their edibles. I hadn't planned on going to South Africa anytime soon, but I'm definitely not going now. No alcohol during a pandemic? What fun are we supposed to have? Who are the haters there? Maybe the situation's really bad. I don't know. Don't send me information about it. I don't really care that enough. It was just a shocking thing to see on Twitter. What are we drinking? This is really delicious because it's bacon-flavored bourbon. From where in Tennessee? Kentucky's not going to like that, but you know what? Too bad, Kentucky. That's what you get for bringing the talking turtle to us for 30-some odd years. I don't think anybody should get $2,000. I'll say they should get $42. That's how much it costs when me and Elaine go to the Cracker Barrel. All right. Where'd we leave off? Oh, right. She was going to do a practical joke. They were going to do a practical joke on the TV. This guy's producer made Loretta a belt, and then he said, when she gives it to you on camera, I'd say it's the ugliest thing you've ever seen. She thought it was funny, so she thought she'd do it. So Marianne gave me a beautiful belt with sequins and the other sparkling things. She gave a big build up about how hard she worked on it to make it by hand and how it was the only one in the world like it. She handed it to me and kept me waiting for me to say something. Dinah sort of glared at me, also waiting for me to say thank you to talk about the belt. This here's the tackiest looking belt I ever seen, I said. I could see Fred off camera laughing his hell, but Marianne didn't think it was a bit funny. She grabbed the belt and threw it at me. Oh my God. I confessed to the joke quick, thinking she darn near ready to whoop me. Then we all laughed, and I thought that was the end of it. But Fred left it in the tape, and it went all over the nation. Oh, my God. I'm sure that for a few minutes, folks all over the nation thought I was the rudest woman in the world. Fred said I played Dinah's shows 30 times. I don't doubt that one bit. The most popular part of Dinah's show was called Cooking with Dinah. One of my favorite shows was a real blowout. Dinah was making potato soup, and we were standing behind the stove in our aprons. She agreed to get the fire too hot. She let the fire get too hot, the lid blew off. Soup flew all over me, her, all over the set. The pot didn't just boil over, it blew. Is that the explosion part of the recipe too? I asked Dinah. After Dinah, it seemed like every television show, variety show in Hollywood wanted me. Kids today don't even know what a variety show is because modern network television is mostly situational comedies or dramatic series or all sex. Well, which one's all sex? Netflix, maybe. TV? I don't really think so. But to her, that's probably a much different definition. But in the 50s and the 70s, but in the 1950s through the 70s, there were variety shows that featured all kinds of acts. Singers, dancers, comedians, musicians, acrobats, trained animals. The Mike Douglas Show. Oh, my grandma liked that one, too. The Merv Griffin Show. She loved that. And the Ed Sullivan Show. I didn't get to stay up late enough to see that. There's another story from national television that I like to tell. One of them starts with a fellow named Greg Garrison, who started out in the 50s producing the Kate Smith Show. Greg later became the producer of the Dean Martin Show, another variety hit that ran during prime time for 10 years. Greg was one of the first producers to believe country artists were good television guests. I would say so. He used to book Johnny Cash and the Carter family on both Kate and Dean Show and knew us country artists could draw a crowd, even in the cities. So Greg called June Carter cast and asked her to recommend another entertainer from Nashville. He said June gave him my name. Greg took June's word about it. I was booked on Dean's show. Dean was the sex symbol of the day. He had young dancers on his program called the Gold Diggers, And they used to rub up against him and make eyes and flirt, and then he'd cuddle with the female guests when they sang duets. You'd think he'd come to rehearsals to practice his show, but Dean Martin never came to rehearsals. Well, he's outside drinking and smoking, I bet, probably. Then he'd come in at 9:30 on a Sunday morning and do what he was told. If he messed up, which often he did, Greg left it in the tape because Dean's audience liked him just the way he was. I rehearsed my parts all week, including the duet I was supposed to sing with Dean. I think Greg sang Dean's part with me during rehearsals. Come Saturday, Greg said, now when you get to the end of your song, Dean will swirl you around and sit you on his lap. The heck he will, I said. My mommy didn't sit on my daddy's lap, and I ain't sitting on no man's lap. Good for her. I'd have walked off the show before I sit, S-E-T, sit in Dean's lap. You know how many women would give anything to sit on Dean Martin's lap, Greg asked me. No, I said, and I don't care. Get them down here and let them sit on his lap. I ain't gonna do it. I sang my duet standing next to Dean, and we never even touched. Greg was set plumb back by my spunk. I walked into my dressing room on Saturday after we taped the show, and there was no room to move. Hundreds of bouquets of roses were all over the place. The show's producer introduced himself. He sent the flowers. He said he'd never come to his own show, but had to come down to see the little girl that wouldn't sit on Dean's lap. See how that works out, folks? You just stand up for yourself and your own beliefs, everything will work out fine. I can't promise that, but it sounds good. After Dean Martin's show finished its run, Greg had another idea. He wanted me to do the Dean Martin Celebrity Roast. Where Dean would have celebrities make wisecracks about other celebrities each week. He told the idea to NBC. Not long after that, Greg asked me to do a roast for Jack Lemmon. Well, I'd never heard of a roast. I thought Dean Martin was inviting me to dinner with his Hollywood friends, so I dressed up real nice. They made a special dress for me and put material flown from Paris, France. I couldn't understand why they wanted me to eat in that fancy dress. They made me read from a teleprompter, and I was scared to death and told Dean I don't read so good. Me? Neither. As evidenced by my performance reading this book, and I really don't read hillbilly writing that great, but I'm getting better. But I didn't have a choice. I was stuck. Making me feel worse, I started in saying the most awful things about Jack Lemmon. I didn't know they was jokes, so each time I said something, I turned to Jack and I said, I didn't mean that, honey. I don't even know you. I'm just saying what's on that card. When I was finished, I sat down to Dean and I said, I'm starving to death. When are we going to eat? What do you mean eat? Dean said. Well, ain't we going to have a roast? I didn't eat any lunch because I thought we was going to have meat and potatoes. He like to fell out of his chair laughing, and the studio TV owner wondered what was so funny. When it come his turn to talk, he told that story on me. Maybe he thought I was putting him on. I wasn't. She's goddamn sitting there starving. See, I never did. I would say no to the Comedy Central roast because I don't like roast unless you know the person. Like if they would have done Lewis Black or, I don't even, Roseanne. Like I have enough that I experiences. Like I would do that, but to just go roast Pamela Anderson, like I don't know the lady. I don't, it's just jokes. There are some people that are very good at it. A, I am not good at it. B, well, I can be good at it if I know the person, because then I have stories that are funny. But if I don't know them, then it's just one-liners, and it's not my thing. And I think we saw the downfall of the roast on the Comedy Central because it got sloppy like that. Like, it's just one-liners about, especially if it's Pamela Anderson, when we talk about your big boobs, or, oh, who was the other one? Bob Saget. And I know Bob, and I like Bob, but then it just becomes, how many jokes can we do about him sleeping with the Olsen twins? Like, it's just, you know what, Bob's club act, Bob Saget, can be a little dirty. I like to compare Bob Saget, and I've told him this, to me, Bob Saget is Candlebox. Do you remember the band Candlebox? They had one song that was a big hit. Now maybe, da-da-da-da-da-da, but I loved you anyway. Anyway, but then if you bought the album, it was like heavy metal, acid rock. And I spent my money on that. I was very disappointed because that's not the rock I'm into. That Candlebox had one song, though, that was very different. I feel like Bob Saget, people think they're going to get the funny dad from that show. I can't remember, Full House. And he's a little dirty. Probably more than they would expect. It's all funny. He's very funny. But I think some of the clean cut people are like, oh, what's he talking about? He's a comedian's version of Candlebox. Anyway, Dean Martin, blah, 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 blah. So he told the stories. Can't mention Dean Martin without thinking of Frank Sinatra. So I'll tell you about the one time in 1973 I was on one of his specials. Frank was another one who didn't show up at rehearsals. They gave him this song he wanted us to sing called All or Nothing at All. And try as I might, I just couldn't get it to where it sounded right. Finally, I told the piano player I thought it was the worst song I'd ever heard. When I run into Frank, I told him that too. Then I said I thought we should sing that me and Conway had our... Wait. When I'm running to Frank, I told him that too. Then I said I thought we should sing the song that me and Conway had out right then. Oh, out right then. Louisiana Woman, Mississippi Man. Now there's the song, I told Frank. Well, little girl, Frank said, All or Nothing at All was my first hit. And this is called The Frank Sinatra and Friends. When you have a show called Loretta, Lynn and Friends, you can sing any song you want. Well, wasn't he just a little dick fuck? That's awfully condescending. I'm surprised with all them goof up producers kept asking me back, but they did. And I was on almost every variety show television they had to offer from the 70s into the mid-80s. I couldn't have asked for no better publicity neither. Going inside America's living room through the television establishment more than anything, you can do one network show and get more exposure than you can from hundreds of one-night concerts. It was the Brokaws, the TV shows, the newspaper articles in Penthouse, and the awards. It was behind me writing Coal Miner's Daughter and ended up seeing my life put in the movies. Seemed to me that the only dream I didn't have was a dream house, like the ones you read about in the books or seen in the movies, big old southern mansions. So when doing me run up on one outside of Nashville, one that had a whole town attached to it, we up and bought it. Good for them. Chapter 17, Hurricane Mills. Where do we know termites? On Highway 40 between Memphis and Nashville. We're on page 145 for those of you termites wondering. I like this. We run up on one. I'm going to start saying that when I spend too much money and my brother will yell at me. Well, Pat, I run up on a boat and I bought it. I didn't even ask how much it cost. Of course, I would have, but I loved Hurricane Mills first time I saw it, and I still love it. I love the old mill that's been on the property for a couple hundred years, the western town, the streams and the rivers that run through it. Even though me and Dew eventually had homes in Hawaii and Mexico, well, wasn't he just running around coming up on stuff? Jesus, that's a lot of traveling when your base is Tennessee. Whew. The house that first done me in was a big old southern mansion in Hurricane Hills. It looked like a hillbilly's dream. We put so much work in on the house, it was so costly that we could have had 3 mansions in Madisonville or Goodlettsville. And the cost of fixing up things, I had to work twice as hard out on the road. Right. And then you got Doolittle Lynn over there buying some bullshit in Hawaii and some bullshit in Mexico. You can't possibly even get to all these places when you're working this hard. You ain't got the time. That caused a problem, because I couldn't tell you about when Dew was alive. With me out working all the time, Dew got bolder and bolder about bringing women around. Well, I could have told you that was probably fixing to happen. By the time I was fixing to move into the big house at Hurricane Mills, Doolittle Lynn already had a girlfriend out there with him. Oh my God. Wow. He never got away with nothing. He never got away with nothing when I was on the road. I had people, both friends and not friends, who was only too happy to report to me back about Dew's doings. I got a phone call at some motel or some concert. If I'd get a phone call, I have folks waiting for me to hit the city limits, only too happy to pass along bad news. So by the time I was ready to move in, the house was ruined for me. Aw. I'd look around at all that work me and Gloria, our housekeeper, had done, and that wallpaper and paint and pictures on the wall, and all I could think is this other old gal been there first. I never felt too comfortable in the house, and when you see me and Dew looking to build another place at the end of my movie, this other woman problem was a big part of that as anything. Although I do believe the house is haunted. What? No! This is her dream house. And he's bringing other hoes over there, and now it's haunted. Fuck. Jack had seen a Confederate soldier standing there as big as you please one time. Oh, no, and it's the losing team. Oh, no. And there was this one spirit that got real possessive about the albums that I had framed on the walls. What? Maybe it's just some anal motherfucker who wants these goddamn albums hung correctly. If somebody messed with them, he'd nudge them back. We never did build a house on that site you see at the end of Coal Miner's Daughter. This is the part where the twins say Du and me rode off into the sunset. Now one of the twins thinks she'll build up there, and I hope that sunset works for her because it didn't for me. Du started building the house behind the big house with the columns, and I finished it after his death. That's where I live now. In many ways, I started to feel like a visitor in my own house back in the 70s and 80s. The farm was expensive to run, so slowing down was not an option. I'd come home for a few days. I almost felt, and I feel like I was almost an outsider. The family had a routine that I often didn't fit into. My friends' kids wanted to come over around to see their star mime, so I couldn't even hang out in old clothes with no makeup, which is the way I like to be when I'm home, which is also the way I've been since the beginning of the pandemic. March. I've read online, though, a story about a lot of you other termites not getting out of your pajamas all day, and I applaud that. When else can this happen in our lifetimes unless you're under the age of 5? Never. Do it. As long as you can, why not? A lot of you are drinking in the day, too, while you're working. I applaud that, too. Everything seems to be running fine, so you're doing it well. This is sad, though. If Du picked me up at the airport, he'd stop on the way home and pick up a bottle. I'd say, honey, I ain't home but one night. Don't get drunk. That would fire him up. He'd pop the bottle open and drink while I was driving home. Well, you know, you poke the beehive, you're going to get stung. By the time we finally got there, he was ready to pass out. Well, it is a long drive from Memphis or Nashville. It's dead set in the middle, so you're going to have about an hour and a half, I'd imagine, from either airport, probably more. He also built, oh, I love that this is in quotes. He also built what he called a rec room out behind the big house. What it was a big old party room right next to the swimming pool. It had a long old bar that Du kept well stocked and his pals purely loved. He'd have big parties, and I'd come home to find the place strung with liquor bottles, women's panties from one end to the other. Whoa! I'd even find watches laying around from when the men decided to take them off and jump in the pool. If I hadn't known Gloria was keeping a close eye on the twins, I wouldn't have been able to sleep a wink on the road knowing what was going on at home. And even Gloria couldn't keep them all under control. They was as wild as billy goats. That's kind, because I like a billy goat, and this shit is out of hand. Once Du got the farm going out at Hurricane Mills, he pretty much devoted his energies to and gave up on the rodeos, hunting lodges, and the like. Well, that's good. At least you're not still paying for all that. And once we had us a working ranch, we decided to open a dude ranch. Oh, no. A dude ranch at Hurricane Mills. You see, Hurricane Mills was actually a little old town, so we had places to put in shops and a place to display things like my doll collection. It worked out good. And now, in 2021, there's all sorts of things going on. We got trail rides, canoe rides, family campgrounds, fishing, concerts, and in recent edition, my new museum. So there you go. If y'all want to go, you might want to check on the website, make sure it's all the same. Things could go real weird in hillbilly land real quickly. We host the National Motocross Championship every year. You should see the crowds for that. I had to laugh this year because my grandson, little Ernie, who's 19, good-looking guy, come in the house during them motocross roads and said, Meemaw, I got to rest a while. Too many girls to chase this week. He was just like his daddy, Ernest Ray. Du worked hard to make Hurricane Mills a place for families to come on vacation and not break the bank to do it. Well, that's nice. Good for Du. On the other hand, living at a tourist spot has its problems. The lack of privacy really got to be a problem after Coal Miner's Daughter came out in 1980. I'm not sure some fans understood that I still lived a certain way, the way I growed up understanding, the way sometimes it involves blood, sweat, and tears. Here's one example. One day, I was out in the yard with the kids killing chickens to clean and freeze. The kids and me had an assembly line going. Jack Benny would wring the chicken's neck. Ernest Ray would dip the bird in scalding hot water to loosen the feathers. Then me and Betty Sue would pluck them. I had the final job of cutting them, and then getting them ready to freeze. I was looking purely awful. My hair was a mess, no makeup on my face, and blood all over me, even in my hair. All of a sudden, we were surrounded by a group of tourists with cameras. And just when they walked up to us, Jack Benny let loose a chicken whose neck had just got wrung. And if you know what happens when you wring a chicken's neck, you can appreciate the scene. The chicken flopped all over the yard right into this one woman's foot. This old gal fainted, deader than a doornail, and I bet her and her husband ain't been to Hurricane Mill since. Maybe they got a thrill. Maybe they came back every weekend. Over the years, we learned to fence off our private quarters, and of course, now I have a house built behind the original one. I ain't had anybody wring a chicken's neck in a long time, but the memory of Loretta Lynn that them fans got is pretty gruesome. Even after I moved into the second house, we still had some privacy problems. One day I was cleaning the house and noticed some women wandering around looking over things in the other room. I thought they was friends of Gloria's. I also thought they was being awfully noisy. I sure wouldn't have been picking things up and looking at somebody else's house. They never did come in and say anything to me. Finally, they left. When I saw Gloria, I mentioned that her friends seemed a little weird. What friends, she said. I didn't have any friends here. I don't know who they was or what they was doing. Okay. Do love meeting fans who come out to the campground. He'd take pictures of women and flirt with them. He'd drink with the men and the good old boy it up with them. They loved him and he loved them, usually. One time, though, we had a visitor who would probably be considered a stalker nowadays. I think you'll appreciate Doolittle Lynn's answer to stalkers. I'm sure I will. Here's what happened. Me and Doo was working outside one afternoon. I was down on my hands and knees digging weeds out of the garden when some man pulled his car into the drive, walked over to me and asked me what I was doing. Working in the garden, I said. That seemed real obvious. Then this fella started telling me how he was my biggest fan and loved my singing. He also made a statement that made me pull up short. That pulled me up short. Wow, that's another one I've never heard. You just said something that pulled me up short. What? I don't know, but it's going to make me get gone, probably. I like you personally, he said in a quiet, kind of a strange, quiet way. Since he didn't know me personally and the tone of his voice got weird, I didn't answer. I just kept right on pulling weeds. By this time, Doolittle had noticed the man, and the man had noticed Doo. This fella then did the strangest thing of all, and it was the thing that made me know he was crazy. He walked right up over to Doo, and told him he was in love with me and he had come to get me. I was surprised Doo didn't cold cock him. Instead, he invited him to sit down and have a drink with him. Doo pulled out a bottle. Two sat there talking about me for the longest time. Doo would pour himself a pop, pour the old man a pop. Well, ain't nobody I ever knowed could go drink for drink with Doolittle. The man got drunker and drunker, sweating like a pig. Pretty soon he passed out. Doo dragged him over to his car, stuck him in the passenger seat, then drove into the barn lot, right into a pile of manure that hadn't gotten shoveled in years. Then Doo rolled down the window of the car and left him there. Big piles of manure and sweaty men attract some of nature's meanest little fly things. Meanest little flying things. Barn flies. They're biggest flies you'll ever run into. I think she also means a horse fly. It's a version of that. If I had to pull up my hillbilly knowledge, that's what I'd say. Cow flies, horse flies. Doo and me went back into the house and locked ourselves in. The next morning, the stalker was gone, probably with whelps and rashes that was driving him crazier than he already was. But he never come back. Somehow, I don't think he was my biggest fan no more either. After Doo died, I finally put up a metal fence and security system. I hated to do it because most folks who come are wonderful. The fence is for the very few who ain't. You see, somebody's always got to ruin a good thing. Now, back in them days, you could just walk right up to her and help her pull some weeds. And then some jackstraw. I had a man in West Virginia. Thankfully, here's the problem with a lot of theaters compared to a club. A lot of the theaters, the ushers work for free, and they tend to be old. And they tend to be smaller ladies, and then they can't really do, excuse me, I'm trying to cross this leg in my yoga position. Don't you worry about what's going on here. Anyway, somehow this guy got backstage. It was like a Sunday show, too. Like, I don't have the energy for the antics on Sundays. Maybe on a Saturday I'll do a stalker, but not on a Sunday. Be sweet. And he was just screaming, Kathleen, you're mine. I've come to get you. I'm going to take you, in that accent. Like, yeah. and I freaked the fuck out. But I kind of wanted to see him. So it was an immense, it wasn't even a good backstage. It was old and weird, but there were like a million rooms. And most people don't think that, I don't think. People think backstages are like these glamorous, they're not. 90% of them are old, and there's tiny little, oh, look, somebody hit the front door. It's Amazon. Is that my flannel sheets? See? Hope so. Hi. One of those drivers is a big fan, and he always gets very excited when I'm home. And he's like, you've been home a lot. I'm like, yeah, well, there's a pandemic. He's nice, though. And then I gave him free CDs. And then I gave him some shit out of my closet I'm trying to get rid of. Anybody want a Ron White flask? I don't even know, why the fuck do I even have their merch in my house? Nay, nay, as John Panette would say, get your shit out of here. Nay, nay. I have some Lewis Black CDs. I'm going to save those, though. Put them on eBay. Anyway, this guy was screaming, you're mine, we're gonna be wedded. When he said wedded, I thought, oh my God, I gotta see this guy, right? Is he like hillbilly folk? So I went and hid, but I could see the mirror, which would then reflect. Still no one was coming. No ushers, nothing. I don't even know where the opening act went. Like, usually that's a guy. Sometimes it's not, but usually, and I didn't even have that person. And I saw him in the mirror, and he looked normal. He wasn't like hillbillified, probably 50. Not somebody I would choose to be wedded with in the hills. But he was fixing to take me. It was very weird, I must say. It wasn't as weird as someone showing up and then having your husband drink with the guy for 4 hours. That's a little weird. So I'm going to have to say sorry to that man in West Virginia. Didn't work out between us. Finally, a little old lady, because they could hear him yelling my name. And then Kathleen, are you okay? And I thought, I don't want her to find me, because she's going to go, there you are, and then Psycho's going to come. So I just had to hide from them. Finally, he left, I think, on his own accord. And then I came out, and the little usher's like, we're so sorry, but we didn't know. What are you going to do? You work for free. I don't blame you. You shouldn't have to be security. All right, Termites. I already said our New Year's Eve thing, because I don't know when these are going to play, really, in what order. But thank God it's 2021. As soon as this is over, we'll just say that, when this video ends. And we're moving on to January. And we're moving on to football playoffs. Yay. My fantasy team came in third. Lewis Black came in second. He thought he was going to win, but he didn't. But we're going to make a new one and then do some family pools, square pools for the playoffs and the Super Bowl. So that'll keep me occupied. A lot of gambling. Going on in this house. I got my new DraftKings app on my phone. That could be my new career, or I could be filming these from a mobile home with just my phone left. This would just be a bottle of shitty, half-burnt sale liquor. All right, Termites, that's it. It's time for your night-night. Pull your sheet up. I know I did that kind of suddenly. I'll give you a second. Okay, ready? Got your sheet up? You have your eyes closed? 2021, think about it. It's going to be better. It's going to be better. It's going to be better. And night-night, Termites.